What's up, everyone? Welcome to this day in Philly sports history for April 27th, 2023. I'm your host, Jim Montgomery. It is day one of the NFL draft. We're super pumped about that. Uploaded the Back to the Future draft special last night, so that's available wherever you get your podcasts as well on the YouTube channel. Didn't really go too in depth on the entire draft, basically because you could go down so many rabbit holes, and there are guys that their job, Todd McShay, Mel Kiper Jr., who is just to look at the draft. So I focus on the first round because the Eagles have the 2 first-round picks. So be sure to check that out before you watch the draft tonight. A couple updates from yesterday. Deion Sanders won 2 Super Bowls, one with the Niners, one with the Cowboys. Did not win a World Series with the Braves. The Braves actually won the year after Deion left. So that meant Gene Connolly still is the only athlete to win a title in 2 different sports in the 4 major sports. And 2 things I left out yesterday. He was a center forward for the Celtics. And in that game yesterday where he became the tallest player to ever play for the Phillies, he did give up 1 run in those 3 innings. Also, if you want to donate to Trae Young's charity for extending that series and giving the Sixers and Joe a couple extra days of rest, it is the Trae Young Charity Foundation. They focus on impacting mental health for people of all ages. I looked into it. It's a pretty cool cause. So if you want to donate for him and say thank you for giving us a couple extra days, it's the Trae Young Charity Foundation. All right. Union update. They tied 1-1, or draw, I guess is what they say in soccer. I'm still learning. 1-1 last night. They scored on a penalty shot because of a handball, and then LA came back in extra time to tie the game. So they will play in a couple days in the second leg of their CONCACAF semifinal Champions League match. Whoever wins will move on to the finals. It was there for the taking. I was watching the highlights at the gym, and it was halfway through extra time too. So it was a very late goal. Phillies update, good win for them. They jumped out early 2-0 against the Mariners, and then Taijuan Walker ended up giving a grand slam and then a solo home run back-to-back, and then left the game because of forearm soreness. So hopefully that's not an issue moving forward. But they chipped away at it, and they kept talking about it, Kruk and T-Mac last night, about just how they were playing real small ball. Like they were scoring their runs with singles, ended up taking the lead in the bottom of the 9th in the rain, and then ended up holding on to the win. The bullpen in relief of Walker looked pretty good. They held the Mariners scoreless, so really they only had the 1 big inning. Which is very similar, eerily similar to what they did the day before off of Bailey Falter. They had the 2 big innings. So overall, the bullpen's looking well. Concerned somewhat about the forearm soreness of Walker. I have not heard an update. I don't know what they have on the docket today as far as tests or anything like that. But Ranger Suarez does get his rehab start in Reading today. Let's hope that goes well. And if Walker has to miss some time, it's not ideal, but at least hopefully Ranger is coming back. Going to stick with the Phillies today. And on this day, back in 2003, the Phillies beat the Giants 1-0. Ricky Leday hit a home run in the first inning for the only run of the game. The big story, though, was Kevin Millwood pitched a no-hitter, walked 3, struck out 10. And Kevin Millwood with the Phillies was kind of one of those enigmas. He came over in 2003 in a trade for Johnny Estrada. Pitched 2 years here, and it just was... It was kind of one of those so-so type careers here in Philly. When he was with Atlanta, though, he was on one of the most dominated pitching staffs ever. It was him, Maddox, Smoltz, and Glavine. They never were able to necessarily get over the hump and win the World Series, but with the Phillies, he went 23-18, 4.34 ERA, 119 strikeouts in 60 games, and he was kind of injury, like it just was a mess the whole time he was here. And then he signed with Cleveland in 2005 and immediately led the American League in ERA. Which to me is typical of the Philly teams back then. They always had guys that came in with a lot of clout and then didn't do much for them. Sometimes they went on to success after they left. But the one guy that always comes to mind is a guy like Adam Oates, who was way past his prime when he came into Philly. But the 03 Phils were 86-76, third place. They were 5 games back of the Marlins for the wild card, who the Marlins ended up winning the World Series that year. It also was the last season at the Vet, so Kevin Millwood pitched one of the 2 no-hitters for the Phillies at the Vet. I don't know how this team, though, wasn't better and didn't get to the postseason. And as I was researching and typing out notes, I'm like, all right, this is going to be a Back to the Future episode because it's just ridiculous. Like, it's probably because of their pitching and maybe because they were young and inexperienced, but they had Bo as their manager, who I always liked when he was the manager. But then you had Rollins, Tomey, Utley, Pat Burrell, Bobby Abreu, Marlon Byrd, Ricky Leday, Placido Polanco, David Bell, Brett Myers, the young Brett Myers. They had Millwood, who had the pedigree. Kevin Duckworth, who had a couple decent years. Vicente Padilla, who had a couple solid years. Randy Wolf, who had a couple solid years. How they did not make it into a wild card at worst, I'll never know. So a future episode this summer is coming up on that because it's just perplexing to me that this team never made the postseason. But such is life. 5 years later, they won the World Series. All right. Eagles draft pick spotlight on day 1 of the NFL draft. We're going to talk about one of my all-time favorite players, and I still have his starting lineup behind my left shoulder. And Clyde Simmons. He was from Lane, South Carolina, went to high school in Wilmington, North Carolina. He was a 9th-round pick, 233 overall out of West Carolina in 1986. And in my eyes, in my opinion, one of the best to ever do it. 2-time All-Pro, 2-time Pro Bowler, Eagles Hall of Famer, played on some of the best defenses ever, and in my opinion, that 91 team is the best team ever. They don't get the accolades all the time because they did not even make the playoffs, let alone win the Super Bowl, but that's another topic for another time. Spent 8 years in Philly, 2 interceptions, 1 interception return for a touchdown, 12 forced fumbles, which he was one of the best at that, always at the league leaders in forced fumbles, recovered 10, ran 2 back for touchdowns, 76 sacks with the Eagles. He ended his career, he played in Arizona and a couple different places then, with 121.5, which is 26 all-time on the official list. There's also the unofficial list because the NFL did not keep sacks as an official stat until 1982. I think he's a borderline Hall of Famer. That's, again, a topic for debate. After the NFL, he got into coaching and coached in the NFL and college. He's currently the defensive line coach at Tennessee State, which I believe the head coach there is Eddie George, who has a Philly connection because he's from Philly and also played in the NFL. But before I get done with Clyde, I have to talk about my all-time favorite Clyde Simmons memory, and it's because it's the year I started watching football hardcore. But in 1988, the Eagles are playing the Giants in the Meadowlands late in the season. Game went into overtime. Luis Zendejas lines up to kick the game-winning field goal. It gets blocked. Simmons, who was on the line for blocking purposes, recovered the ball, took it around the left end for a touchdown. Eagles win. It was the second time they beat the Giants that year, and due to them beating the Giants in this game, it allowed them to end up winning the division, which ultimately led to the Fog Bowl. But one of my all-time favorite Clyde Simmons memories. It's just so vivid in my brain that I can just see the entire, just him rumbling 15 yards or so for a touchdown. But Clyde Simmons, 9th round pick, 233 overall in 1986, one of the all-time great Eagles. Let's hope the Phillies continue their winning ways today in the old business person special at 1 o'clock against the Mariners. On this day, Kevin Millwood pitched a no-hitter at the Vet in 2003. We'll be talking all draft tomorrow, so go check out Back to the Future, the first round draft preview edition. This has been This Day in Philly Sports History. I'm Jim Montgomery. Go have yourselves a Thursday, and until next time, I will see you when I see you.